We're here.
And there we are.
And here we shall stay.
Yes.
Fios 1 News, Lower Hudson Valley's Joe Rayo.
And Fios 1 News, New Jersey, where they got a little bit of snow in parts of the Garden State today.
Down in Atlantic County, I got 7 inches.
And
those Norland troughs are horrible. They're worse than warm fronts.
Yeah, they are. They are. And also Joe Cioffi, Fios 1 News, Long Island, which didn't get anything.
That's correct. And usually these troughs that come in, what they call Norland troughs, and you see them in the winter, a few times a winter. Those are those little surprise snows that fall in basically about a 15 or 20, 25 mile area. Right. You're on either side of that. You're either getting flurries or nothing. But if you're in there, it snows for hours and hours, and some places wind up with, sometimes you get half a foot or even 8 or 9 inches.
Now, I distinctly remember, in fact, it was in early December. It was maybe 1987 or 88.
Oh my! That was the Norland trough of all Norland troughs.
You remember that?
Because I got well over a foot out of that,
right.
And about 10 miles to the east of me, it rained,
right.
And about 20 miles to the west of me, there was barely a coating.
Right.
And I remember driving home, and I felt relatively new to the area in central Long Island, and I got lost. Everything was just white out. I couldn't figure out where I was.
I remember driving home on the Cross Island Parkway, and I got to the spot where you turn on to the Northern State Parkway. Oh no, the Long Island Expressway. And you remember there was Corvettes.
Right
at that spot.
Remember.
And there was some hills beyond that, and the hills were white.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe this.
And by the way, it just reminded me of one other thing about that. It was
1987 or 88?
It was maybe it was 87. But 87 or 88, it wouldn't have mattered because it got absolutely zero coverage, okay, in the news outlets at the time.
Right.
That News 12 was in its infancy.
Right. So
it did get some coverage from News 12, but as far as the New York stations were concerned, I remember hearing a small mention of it on 1010 Winds, buried somewhere deep into the newscast.
It snowed a little bit on Long Island today.
That's it. Yeah, nobody believed it. No one believed it.
And meanwhile, a good friend of ours from the National Weather Service for a good number of years, in fact, I took a class at City University with him, Tom Grant. And Tom used to like to, Tom really, when he put out a special statement, he put out a statement. And
he's very colorful in his writing.
And in describing what was going on, he said we finally stopped being forecasters and we were all observers. In other words, back then they didn't really understand the physics or the models that we had, just really didn't forecast. We knew yesterday. We knew yesterday and last night that there was some indication that South Jersey would get perhaps a bit of snow, but there was no indications of that.
You might have pushed the envelope and said that somebody could have gotten a couple of inches, because that's the best you really can do with these Norland troughs. But they always surprise somewhere for somebody.
I seem to remember in that 1987 or 88 situation, we were all watching leading up to the storm. We're saying, "Oh, thank goodness, we're not going to see anything because the storm is going to be way, way out here. There's no possibility."
Right. It was, and it was an inverted trough. It was just was crazy.
And we just didn't anticipate that little, as you said, the Norland troughs stretching all the way
nothing
back to
in New York City. Nothing in New York City. Queens. Nothing.
Amazing.
It was just there.
And this is what happened today in New Jersey, South Jersey.
And now let's move ahead because everybody's they're all focused on this next storm for the weekend, Joe.
Oh, come on.
And you know what? Look, I think it's fair to say that you and I, if there were a possibility of leaving the door open in a situation like this, we would leave the door open. Right. But with everything that's going on, particularly with what I've been talking about with the upper air and how it looks. I don't even think that the door, if it's open, it's barely open a crack, and it would be just for areas south of New York City and Long Island for getting a little bit of precip maybe on the northern fringe at the start, but when it were to come through, that might even be really pushing it here.
It seems that now we're getting closer in. The actual storm that will do its damage is making its way into the California Southern California area,
right,
where there are a lot more places where the
got the satellite picture up there right now,
where we can get samplings that can be inputted into the supercomputers.
Yeah, you know, Joe, I don't know that the that is as important as what's going on in the northern jet. I think the northern jet here really is the most important thing, because that's what's getting in the way. This looks loaded enough. You've got there's a really good solid subtropical jet that's coming in, over Southern California. They were getting pounded in rain in San Diego for hours and hours on end, and that's moisture streaming northeastward. This is a powerhouse upper air system. So I don't think the models have really handled that all that badly. I think they're probably going to be pretty close. To me, it's really more up in the northern part of the jet stream that is problematic. And I'm going to draw it on the paint box, because I think that's where we'll see this best. So why don't I bring up? We'll start with. All right. So this is the jet stream.
Look at that flow. That's.
I mean, we'll go to for everything's kind of just moving along from west to east, but let's go to Sunday morning. All right. And this is I think this is the crux of the issue with all of this. And give me 1 second here. Make sure it's up at the top of the screen so everybody can see. All right. So you got this flow in Canada here. All of this, these upper air winds.
Right.
There's northwest winds aloft, all the way down. I mean, you can go all the way down into southern New Jersey, where the flow is being dominated by this Canadian jet, and you not only have a trough that's moving off the New England coast here, there's another trough that's just coming on the scene there in James Bay that's basically going to reinforce that. If that doesn't get out of the way, there is no room for this. This is the southern system here,
right?
And if there is a northwest flow there up in New England like that, you're going to wind up taking this thing, pretty much. It's going to want to go straight into the east. So if you want, what we can do now is just let's jump to Monday, okay? And what do you have on Monday? That northern jet is still
predominant.
Yeah, it's not out of the way.
Right.
It's got northwest winds aloft right down to New York City, strong northwest winds in New England. Here's your southern system here, and that's going to be the only place that's going to go is out to the east.
Now, I've seen that some forecasters have been talking about, well, this is a double type system, that there's going to be one wave that's going to move off the coast, but there's going to be a second one on Monday following along that's going to take a more northerly course.
How?
And that may well, I'm only repeating.
All right, so let's go to Tuesday. Okay, so here's Tuesday,
right,
on the upper air. Okay, here's Tuesday. So what do you got? You got this. I mean, and here's the second system.
Right.
If that's what it is, where's that going to go? It's going to go straight east.
Right.
There's no room. There's just no room.
Maybe it won't show up until later in the weekend. We'll get another Norland trough that this time pokes toward New York City or whatever.
Well, look, there's always, the system that produced the Norland trough this time around was one that, folks were kind of getting worked up about storm signals for this date around December 4th, 5th, and you wound up with a low that formed way out.
Right.
It did have, at the last minute, you had this Norland trough that pulled back to the west because the upper air trough was coming through today.
Right.
But I don't know. There's nothing here to me that suggests that there's room for anything. Now, Joe, that being said, I think this could be a pretty sizable event for the interior mid-Atlantic states. This looks like this could be a big deal for snow-wise for much of interior North Carolina and Virginia.
Oh, yeah. The mountains of western North Carolina especially, they're beautiful during the summertime, but in the wintertime when you get the right kind of setup, and this is the right kind of setup for them, they may be looking at one, maybe as much as, I would say, even in an extreme case, 2 feet of snow.
Wouldn't be a surprise, and the models are getting colder and colder. One of the things that's happening here is with that northwest flow holding on, You've got that high up in Wisconsin, the high up in upstate New York.
Right.
That cold air is just literally locked in.
Right.
If and a few people, by the way, and I brought the map up, I have it ready, were saying, well, you know, in 2016, when we had the big snowstorm in the middle of January 2016, that wound up coming up, but the setup was different. The northern jet got out of the way. I actually have the map. I actually pulled up the surface map here, and
this is 2016.
This is 2016. This is January, whatever the date was. It was 21st, 22nd, 23rd.
Right.
So you know you've got high coming down out of Canada. All this is cold air in the east. You've got the low in southern Mississippi, and as we move it along, now it's already going to be further north than this system. The low goes into Georgia,
right,
and you're going to wind up seeing it redevelop. Goes off the North Carolina coast, but look where it winds up.
Yeah,
it winds up off of the Delaware coast. This thing ain't ever going to get close to the Delaware coast.
Right.
It may get up to as far as Hatteras or just east of Hatteras, and then it's probably going to shoot out straight to the east. You're never going to see that surface low that far north. If you were. Right. It would be because that northern jet would have pulled out of the way. And if I remember correctly, the argument was, at the time, was that the northern jet was trying to pull out, but the models were not pulling it out. They weren't pulling it out as fast as it actually did pull out. Right. And that left some room. There's too much here in the upper air to I believe. There's too much going on in Canada. That northern jet is just way too strong. Even if it were to be a little weaker, it wouldn't be weak enough.
And you know, the thing about that really forecasters were wrestling with, such as myself, was the fact that up until the computer models that came out on Friday night, late Friday night, up until then, the general outlook was for 4 to 8 inches of snow, at least in the Hudson Valley. And as it turned out, it was more like 8 to 16. But what really made it tough was the sharp cutoff line. I live in Putnam County, in lower Putnam County, right near the Westchester Putnam line. I got at my house 11 inches of snow. If you had gotten in your car and traveled 10 miles north of my house, there were places 10 miles north of my house that barely had enough snow to cover the grass.
I believe
it was incredibly.
It was a very sharp cutoff, and there's going to be a really sharp cutoff with this. Only the sharp cutoff is probably going to be just south of the Washington D.C. area.
And you better believe that the people who live in Washington D.C. is crazy. They and Baltimore too, or if you're from the Baltimore area, Balmer. If you're in that area, if they get 2 inches of snow, they'll get ready to shut the whole city down.
You know what? I don't understand that because of the fact that they do, Baltimore and Washington, they do get snowstorms from time to time.
Right.
Okay. They get less than we do, but they do get snowstorms from time to time. I don't understand why they don't handle it well.
Right.
I don't know. I'm just not sure.
And Craig Allen, by the way, our good friend from CBS, and also at Pix 11 on weekends, posted on his Facebook page. He lives in Valley Stream out on Long Island. That you could see the classic stripes on the ground of brining. That they had brined the.
Oh God!
They had brined the road. In
I can't. They brined my one of my.
They probably heard the forecast for South Jersey and said, "Oh, well, we better make preparations just in case it comes up here." And
one of my snow removal guys that follows me, and I talk to almost every day. He told me that they were brining in Rockland County today.
Oh,
why? I don't. I guess what I want to know is why. What did they hear that caused someone to say we need to brine these roads today? I just hope that they have enough left to do this come January and February if they're doing it now when they don't have to.
Well, maybe they'll get a snow shower that'll whiten the ground tomorrow night. They'll make it worthwhile or something. It's just amazing.
Oh boy. So look, the bottom line is, folks, while this is all going to be going on there, we are going to be cold and dry right through the weekend and into next week. Below average for sure by a good amount, and that's it. There's not going to be too much happening. That low, that if you want to say, well, what about this second low? Well, there it is, and there it goes. So we're done. After that, Joe, looks like the pattern's going to break for a little while from the below average temperatures that we've had pretty much straight through since mid-October, with some exceptions here and there. The next weather system for later next week looks like a big rainmaker, and then that goes by, and then we'll get maybe another shot. Everything seems to be kind of a progressive pattern where things are just moving from west to east. Cold fronts come through, and that's about it. There's nothing going into through this long range period anyway, which takes us to about December 19th, 20th.
Right. Right.
Now, after that, it might start to get,
it
might start to change again. I actually believe that it will change again toward the end of December and going into January. We might have a wild couple of weeks to deal with.
Well, we'll see.
That's my never to be humble opinion.
We'll see. I'm just happy that that in the local area today we missed out. I'm happy right now. I have a good feeling that we're going to miss out again Sunday and Monday. Although, again, the folks who live in western North Carolina, beautiful area of the country, as I said, to be in if you're in the summertime, to go into the mountains of western North Carolina, or let's say south and central sections of Virginia. They're going to be in line for, again, a very substantial or at least a significant snowfall Sunday into Monday. And then after that, we'll warm things up a little bit.
Ethan Kerr had the Norland Trough horror where he drove through the heavy accumulations coming up from the south, and when he got home in Ocean County, there was barely anything on the ground.
Right. Well, Ocean County is like, as I mentioned this before, you look at the map of South America, and there's Chile. Chile is a very skinny country, and it runs right north-south along the west coast of South America. Ocean County is not exactly a skinny county, but they do have a broad area, and I would have thought that, let's say, extreme southern Ocean County would have gotten a significant amount of snow out of this, but I guess not. Fabian
Bartolos says he's even on the fringes where he is in Fredericksburg, Virginia. The northern stream is the key, and where it phases. But there's nothing really in the northern stream to phase, though, Fabian. The northern jet's just too strong. I just don't see that there's anything there to cause that to happen, in my never to be humble opinion. George Kasdan, good evening to you. Let's see.
Fabian doesn't want to get off of this, does he?
No, we need to stop wish casting and move on to the next one. I'm in the middle of Virginia, and we might still end up with something like 2 to 4. But at least for you, it's more of an issue. For you, it's a close call on the northern fringe of the precip, and you're gonna. I would keep my eye on the NAM. When we get into the short range, because I think that's the model that's really going to handle this well.
The NAM did you look at the 3 kilometer NAM for this system, the Norland Trough system
from last night?
And
I did. It did a pretty good job.
But
I think where the NAM, for those of you who might be watching from the Carolinas, or particularly in northeastern Georgia, northwestern South Carolina, the NAM might be handling the cold air a lot better than the other models, and I think that the parallel GFS caught on to this today, because now it's got ice down into northeast Georgia where it previously had rain. So I think the NAM is going to be probably giving you good clues as to where the snow, ice, rain line is going to be.
Now you tell me, you said the other night that the parallel GFS is going to replace the GFS we now have in January?
In January, yeah.
Okay.
Chris McCarthy in Southwest Virginia, if you're down near Roanoke or in that particular area, you could do pretty well over there in terms of snow. If you're a snow lover, you will consider it doing well. If you don't like snow, you will not consider it doing well. Somebody is going to get hammered with that. For a storm of some areas may wind up snowing Sunday and Monday,
right?
In North Carolina,
right? The
and in western North Carolina,
systems, yeah.
So this could be a long duration event for areas down there in the interior mid-Atlantic states.
They could get, if everything fell into place, let's say for western or central North Carolina, they could get a period of moderate to even heavy activity during Sunday, and then it peters out for a little bit later Sunday and Sunday night, and then all of a sudden it cranks back up again just in time for the Monday morning commute. It looks like a lot of fun for folks who live down in that area.
I agree. Harrisonburg, Virginia. As the daughter's driving back from school early in the week, I'm trying to remember where Harrisonburg is.
Never heard of it.
I'll do. I have, but hang on. Virginia. I'll pull up a map. All right, let's get it wider. Shenandoah National Park near Charlottesville.
Oh, okay.
Well,
they're going to be like right on the fringe.
You're going to be on the edge. You're going to be close to either the northern fringe or the fringe of the heavy snow. Down closer to Lynchburg, but particularly like Roanoke, Blacksburg, in those areas, and then further south, you start to get into, North Carolina, Greensboro, Winston-Salem, toward the Cherokee National Forest. That is going to be problematic. And you're along, I'm seeing where Harrisonburg, right off 81. So, yeah, once you go, you're kind of close to where the northern fringe is going. Either the northern fringe will make it to you for sure, and you might not be that far away from the heavier snow. I would pay close attention to forecasts over the next couple of days.
Right, because what we're dealing with here, as what we were talking about with the storm a few years ago, is that we may have a very sharp line of precipitation.
And you also say early in the week. I'm thinking the further north you are, the snow's probably going to end earlier. So if you're talking Tuesday, by then it'll be done up your way.
Right.
At least from what we're seeing at the moment. Raleigh-Durham, Jessica Zerbis. I have to, to be honest, I got to look. I got to give it a closer look. I haven't really. Haven't been able to really do a close analysis of it, being that I'm so focused on our local weather. But tomorrow and Friday, I'll try to give it a bit of a closer look. But what we can do, Joe, since we've got a couple of minutes left.
Daniel Brogan wants to know if there's any chance the storm comes north and does impact New York City. Again, we're not closing the door completely, Daniel, but the door is only open a crack for that to happen. And by the end of this week, we may just shut it completely. So I wouldn't think. I think right now the probabilities are probably 20% or less.
All right, so the NAM wouldn't go far enough out anyway, but I would just at least to get some clues. There's some problems at NCEP tonight, so data's coming in late.
Yeah.
The GFS and the parallel GFS from the last run were about 2 hours late. So it looks like the NAM is running behind right now. So I can't really help you. I was hoping that the NAM would have been out 6 hours later from earlier, and it would start to show precip going into North Carolina. So I was going to be curious to see if it had more frozen precipitation than freezing precipitation. So save your questions for tomorrow from that, and Joe and I will definitely take a look and spend our time talking about what might happen down in that particular part of the world, where I was just there recently driving down to Atlanta. I drove down I-81. What a gorgeous drive that is. I hadn't done it in many years, and well, it was breathtaking to do it in the fall.
And this takes me back a little bit, because back before I got started in this business, but was still very interested, and was a storm nut or a storm freak. For a storm like this threatening the Carolinas, I would tune in. There's a 50,000 watt flamethrower, as they call it, Clear Channel station WBT in Charlotte, North Carolina. They're at 1110, 1110 on the AM dial, and I used to listen to that station, especially when they were in a situation where they were getting heavy snow or significant winter storm. Always interesting to listen and see how this causes all big-time problems for places that normally don't get that kind of stuff. And that may very well be their situation Sunday and Monday. Fabian
Barlos, breaking pattern, but not for long, according to Judah Cohen. I did see his tweets today, and I can't argue with him. I mean, even if I could argue with him, I won't argue with him. But I kind of tend to agree that whatever pattern break we're going to get in the next couple of weeks will be short-lived. Let's see, Michael Corman, no clams casino or linguine with clam sauce recipe for a Long Islander living in Richmond? ? I'm not. I'm not big on cooking seafood. I'll eat it, but I don't, roasts and things and things like that, potatoes, vegetables, and so on, that I do, but I haven't really given my hand at seafood, so I don't have a good recipe for clam sauce, or for clams casino, or for linguine with clam sauce.
I'd love to see you on one of those contests they stage on Food Network every so often. Well,
I'd give it a try. They put all the weather people together and have some kind of cook-off. Well, I'd do that.
I know you would be neck and neck with Mike Favetta, who I think is no longer back in Italy now.
He'll beat me hands down. He's very much into his food, and he's the weather chef. Yes, indeed. All right, great night, folks. Hope you had a good time on the show tonight. Joe and I will be back tomorrow night here at 9:20-ish, and then Friday he's going to attempt to Skype in. So even though he won't be here, we'll see if we can get you on, and
maybe his
it'll be a good thing.
Will Skype in.
Oh, if we can get Terrence Cardinal Fitzgerald to be on with us, my God, yes.
And maybe Mr. Green. We'll have a whole party.
Dear Addison, yes.
We'll make it a Brady
Brittany Borer. We'll get Jeffrey on, Jeffrey Banson, who's on in the morning with Brian, and Addison Green, Brittany Borer on midday, and Joe and I will be back tomorrow night.
Yes, sir.
All right. Have a great evening, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.